customize characters for you at the towards the end of the session. But I feel very strongly about hitting the ground running. So you all have default, like mid-range, nothing exceptional about this character.
Okay.
Where are the cameras?
Yeah. So that means you all have the same hit points. You all have all the same stats starting out. And yeah, so 3 hit points to the head. You do not want to get hit in the head. And if you do get hit in the head, you want to make sure you're wearing a helmet.
Okay.
We are going to start out with you guys being teenagers. So if you do want to make a super customized character later on, this is your character when they were young. You can think of this as potentially a thing on how it goes. This is a prologue session. Okay. So, while we, before we get into the part of character customization that will be on the table for you guys, I'm going to pass this around, and I'd like folks to take turns reading a section. You read a section, you pass it to the next person. This way I get to eat my last slice of pizza while we keep rolling. Would anybody like to start?
I can start.
Okay. And there are 2 pages. And this is just kind of the overview of the area where we are. I mentioned, I say, anybody want to start, and I keep going. One of the reasons why we're playing this game is that the original designer of it passed away. This game was originally released in the 1970s. It was an early competitor with D&D. And so a lot of fantasy RPGs that you might be experienced with come from the D&D lineage. This represents a different branch on the RPG tree. Like it still has some of the same roots as D&D, but it's been on like Australia.
Full of criminals
and things that want to kill you.
One of the consequences of that, though, is that just in terms of the corporate policies, the settings that were developed for D&D early on, they were originally the result of the game designers. But very quickly with TSR, it became kind of a corporate-owned, marketed world. The world that was originally created for RuneQuest, Glorantha, was retained under the control of the original creator for a lot longer than any of the D&D campaign settings. So, and it's been under continuous development, like, since the 70s. So, normally, I love to make settings as we go. This is one of the very, very few times where I'm going to say, okay, actually, because this is in part recognition for the original designer, we're going to use something very similar to the original, or that setting. Okay, so a little bit of this is homebrew, but a surprising amount of this is actually from the rule books. And with that, I will shut up.
Big picture locations. First, the Lunar Empire. During the Gods' War, the elemental rune of the moon lost its power. The moon no longer moves through the sky. Instead, it stays affixed in one place, its dim red light moving through the lunar phases. In the past 200 years, the rune of the moon was resurrected. I think there was a typo in here. Has resurrected the bustling route between the capital and Arkat's hold. Asrelia's retreat now marks the furthest and now powers the Red Emperor and his forces. The heart of the empire lies to the north, but it is expansive. The worshippers follow the Red Goddess of the Sky and the Seven Mothers.
A sentence got moved in there.
Okay.
It's not what a sentence from somewhere else got,
shoved
in somehow.
Okay.
The rune of the moon was resurrected and now powers the Red Emperor and his forces.
Okay.
The heart of the empire lies to the north, but it is expansive. The worshippers follow the Red Goddess of the Sky and the Seven Mothers. that part about the bustling route between the capital and Arkat's Hold, that goes somewhere else. So we'll see if that becomes a problem later, too. Okay. Who's next?
Find where that sentence fits later. Okay. Estolia? A southern territory whose matriarchy is dominated by the worship of Ernalda, Earth Mother. The capital city of Estolia lies to the south in Mirror Sea Bay, and it is one of the most populated and cosmopolitan cities in Glorantha. The Estolians worship Ernalda and her 1,000 husbands, wives, sons, and daughters. Estolia is loosely knit, with most recognizing a weak but respected queen priestess. Shrines to the grandmothers of Estolia dot the land.
The Shadow Plateau. Along the northwest borders of Estolia, the Shadow Plateau and its surrounding regions were home to the Shadow Lords. They once controlled the area that is now the capital of Estolia. Its current leaderships are unambitious, but cunning.
North March Road, a road that follows along the Whitefall River, from the capital in the south to the Azraelia's retreat to Badahald to Arkat's Hold. Why you guys having
Just throw all the names in there.
I just made up the pronunciation. I suggest you don't say it. The road is largely in disuse between Azraelia's retreat and Badahald.
And we do actually have a map. Like I said, this surprising amount of this is canonical.
So you just read North March Road?
Yeah.
Badahald. At the head of the Whitefall River in North Estolia, once the most important river in Estolia, Badahald is now the hub for small groups of satellite villages. It has grown culturally distant from Estolia and is much more rustic and independent than many parts of Estolia. Its citizens still consider themselves Estolian, but local tradition and clans are of utmost importance.
I think you missed one.
Oh. I thought we were doing by paragraph. Badahald once served as the connecting point between Whitefall River and the road to Arkat's Hold. With Whitefall River falling out of favor and with Arkat Hold's heresies, travel to and from Badahald has become a trickle.
Freehold, one of the satellite villages of Badahald, settled by a former slave from the Lunar Empire who'd won his freedom in gladiatorial pits. Originally from Estolia, the freedman sought to return there in his old age, bringing a retinue of his own slaves. Freehold is where he died, with his retinue settling the area. Freehold is only 2 generations removed from the gladiatorial pits and still has cultural memories. Its religion and ethnicity is highly mixed, with the original coming from different areas on the borders of the Lunar Empire.
Arkat's Hold. Once an important fortress in North Estolia, Arkat's Hold is now more tense. Generations ago, it was held unprotected for Estolia by a sorcerer. The citizens who live in the small city at the base of the fortress are ethnically and culturally Estolian, but the sorcerers retain control of the hold itself. Arkat's Hold remains independent in the skirmishes between the Lunar Empire and the Estolian forces.
The Camp. The southernmost fortress of the Lunar Empire. Once an Estolian hold, the Camp is now the staging ground for Lunar Empire slave catchers who travel south to forage for prisoners under the pretense of enforcing Lunar Empire laws. Whether or not the locales they travel through recognize Lunar Empire laws is irrelevant. The Camp is the largest base for Lunar Empire forces this far south. The camp itself is garrisoned with defensive forces. It mostly serves as a supply point for smaller incursions, but has been slowly gaining additional barracks over the course of decades. The barracks now dwarf the size of the actual garrison. The purpose for the barracks whether in preparation for a larger force or just madness on the part of the camp's leadership, is unknown.
The Shards, a Neolithic group that lives at the foot of the Skyreach Mountains in North Estolia. They are rarely seen, but are believed to worship one of the most ancient of the grandmothers of Estolia.
You get another one with 2 paragraphs, because that's how we roll.
Wilford Brimley. The nearest major city of Esrolia, Wilford Brimley exists near the furthest reaches of the Shadowlands. It was once ruled by the forces of the Shadow Plateau. It's rumored that the denizens of Wilford Brimley still pay tribute to the Shadow Lords in exchange for protection.
I'm looking at you.
I know. Wilford Brimley's temples to the goddess Ernalda and their celebratory parades almost rival those of southern Estolia. Wilford Brimley is a significant trade city within Estolia and her northern neighbors, and while distinctly Estolian in culture, is cosmopolitan.
Okay, I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to scratch out the name, and it's now, what, Brimley?
Yeah, Wilford Brimley.
That's the diabetes guy.
Yeah. I was going to do that voice, but I realized I couldn't.
What was it supposed to be?
Wilford.
Oh,
It's just Wilford. He
Wilford.
threw in the Brimley. Or maybe Brimley will be the name of the magistrate. Okay, I'm sorry.
I missed my part. Cosmopolitan. There we go. Last one. Asrilia's Retreat, a noteworthy temple city and one of Estolia's grandmothers. Once located on northmost people. Once located.
That's where the sentence got fucked up.
Once located on.
The bustling route.
Okay, wait a minute. The bustling route between the capital and Arkat's Hold, Asrilia's Retreat now marks the furthest. Skipping back.
People.
Most people travel on that road. It is said that if properly placated, the goddess who resides at the shrine will grant wishes.
Yes.
That sentence almost became once resided on the northernmost people.
Do you need this back?
No kink shaming.
It's one way to have a mobile city.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally on the back of your workers.
Literal being the emphasis there. Okay. So, yeah, I've mentioned to some of you before, but I think, I don't know if I've said it to the entire group. The tone that we're aiming for, this is a Bronze Age civilization. You may have noted through the descriptions, it's also a heavily matriarchal civilization. The Ernalda is very much an earth goddess. Her shrines are almost always, at least half the shrine is underground. So the kind of tone that we're aiming for here is somewhere between like 2 parts Conan and 1 part Princess Mononoke.
Okay. Got it.
Just want to see Conan riding a wolf with a mask now.
That would be fitting. We can work with that. So
We're here to kill the humans and save the forest.
yes, and there is a rather significant forest just to the north of you guys. So, or you guys. Actually, it depends on where you start. I'm not dictating that.
I understood most of the words in that sheet.
Oh, good. That's what we aim for.
But then again, considering my character is probably appropriate.
Okay. So the next thing I'm gonna pass around, I only have 3 sheets.
Just rip it out of and say, is it okay if I have some?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I think to be sure.
And I have another bag in the car if you guys want.
They're already melting.
Quick. Oh, I should have printed
I
more.
laughed because I did the same thing. Oh no!
Okay, so what I've passed out, which everybody except for Logan can see, because Logan, I don't want you to know anything.
I'm playing this character like I told you then.
These are the parts of character creation that we're going to do before play. The characters that you have in front of you the stats are generic. They've been specifically designed to simplify the math because the second page in front of you is a list of skills, which is
Huge.
and the amount of
Intimidating.
calculation is not as bad as some systems that I've seen.
Fatal.
Do you remember how I mentioned this was on a slightly different branch from D&D?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Instead of having classes, most of
Library use.
the character customization takes place in the form of what skills you choose. Likewise, there are no levels. As you use a skill, you put a check mark next to it, and you have a chance of improving that skill. So, if you want to improve something, you grind with it.
But do you bump with it?
Depending on the skill.
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. We ain't here to judge.
There is a skill with fists.
There is. So, actually, I printed off 3. I'm going to need to take one of those back so I can see what we're talking about. Maybe I should just fucking print off some more.
That would probably be good.
That can work.
You do have a badass printer.
I do.
Go the easy route.
For the players who were here with the Vigil campaign, would anybody like to start out with a personal scene? Go for it. Regale us. Where is your dude? Where is Biff, and what is Biff doing?
Alright, so about 45, 50 minute walk outside of Freehold in the thicker part of the forest. About a 15, 16-year-old child is with his father, and his father has a long bow, and he doesn't have it drawn, but he has an arrow knocked, and he's holding it down, and he's teaching his son the fox walk, where you move and you twist your foot as you put it down to make less noise as you're walking. And there's, it's heavily wooded. There's barely any paths through here, so they're kind of dipping and ducking under this underbrush. And, you see the father almost expertly walking through this and following very light markings of a trail of something that they're hunting. And you see, the son kind of almost tripping but catching himself and making slightly more noise, and, steps on a twig and it goes crack. And then off in the distance, a deer's head looks up. And the father turns around and kind of gives a glare at his son and says, "Watch." He pulls the arrow back. He says, "Breathe in. And let." And as soon as he says let, a dagger strikes the deer in the throat. And it drops. And out of the tree comes a scruffy-looking 15-year-old.
That's where we're headed with that. I was wondering, this child, he seems so innocent compared to what you were describing. Okay.
And, he drops down. He lands. He stands up. He brushes himself off, and he looks over towards the hunter and his child. And he says, "My woods."
Elamuth, the father, he's not from Freehold, but I mentioned earlier that there was a number of satellite villages around Bottle Hall. So Elamuth and his son are from one of those satellite villages. And the various satellite villages, they have different relationships with Freehold. For some, Freehold is this place that you guys actually know military traditions. You know swordsmanship. Most of the Bottle Hall area is spears and salvaged metals. There's not really even that much in the way of blacksmithing. They're nominally Bronze Age. So some look to you guys as the bringers of this knowledge. Others look to you as these strangers that are culturally odd and they're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Elameth, in response to you saying, "This is my woods,"
Mm-hmm.
he draws his child behind him and pulls out a dagger of his own. How do you respond?
He tilts his head, looks at the dagger, and then kind of peers around and looks at the quiver of arrows, and then takes his knife out of the deer, and then kind of walks around to the front of the deer and stabs it in the neck twice quickly to completely finish it off.
Okay.
And then turns around and then like just sits down, like cross-legged, and looks at him and says, "What arrows are you using?"
Okay. Let's see. Let's make this a roll. And so the two options that this will be a percentile. So just to give this a shot.
Okay.
One mechanic that I want to introduce
Mhm.
is that you can augment one skill with another. Basically, you make one skill check. If you succeed, your next skill check gets plus 20%.
Okay.
So what I would recommend doing, based on that description, is your first check. What you're making is either a speak own language or a intimidate or a charm.
Let's see, speak own language has the highest, but I feel like charm would.
Okay, so we're going with charm.
Yeah.
And you can, because of your description, you can augment that with making a peaceful cut.
Okay.
Because
So, what am I trying to roll high or roll low?
you're trying to roll below your skill.
Okay.
So what's your peaceful cut?
50.
50. So if you roll 50 or lower on this one, your next roll is easier.
Nope.
Okay. So you go to stab the deer, and it rather than being this like clean, methodical stab, it's nice and expertly done. Like the blood, because it was still alive, so his heart was still beating. It's like
I'm
splashes.
sitting. When I sit down, I sit in the pool of blood.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So you failed your augmentation roll. So now you make your charm roll.
Oh God! I wish I would have known that I had to roll below the thing before I chose a 25% chance. Oh hey!
You got it.
Yeah.
So you're
Sitting in a pool of blood.
your character is sitting in a pool of blood with viscera, spilling out onto the forest floor.
Mm-hmm.
The songbirds have gone silent in the shocking violence of your kill. And are you smiling?
No, he's still like looking at the quiver, and he's just like, "What arrows are you using?"
Okay. Do you want this charm to go towards the son or the father?
The father.
Okay.
He's not paying the son any attention.
Gotcha. Okay, so Elameth is, as a result of that, Elameth pauses, puts his knife away, draws out the arrow, and goes over and starts talking to you, talking shop.
Okay. What type of arrows is he using?
I'm not familiar enough to be able to say. What are you?
Well, if it's Bronze Age and they're not very advanced, it would probably be flint. Or if he's very poor, it would be like sharpened wood.
We're gonna go with flint.
Okay. He kind of looks at it. He hefts the arrow, shakes his head, and goes behind a tree and gets his own quiver and looks at how many he has, pulls out about 5, and hands them to him. Flint's heavy, doesn't fly well.
Okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to cut just real quickly. Elameth's son is standing there he's about your age, right?
Mhm.
The fact that his father, who was like teaching him and chastising him, is now talking shop with this strange woodsman. The son is just kind of like standing there, not quite sure what to make of this. So the camera like goes from your exchange, pans over to the kid with this like almost deflated, abandoned look on his face. Scene. Okay. And because I normally for a longer campaign, I would want to be much more judicious in how I hand these out. But go ahead and mark charm.
Okay.
The box
Yes.
next to it.
Who wants to go next?
Can anybody?
Yeah. It's
Jump
open
in.
game.
Okay. So the sun is rising over some raggedy looking huts. You can tell the people who live in them aren't very well off. It's nice and quiet. Birds are chirping. And then from one hut you hear an explosion of expletives. One older voice, one younger voice. Just nobody in the other houses even reacts. This seems like a normal occurrence. And you hear an older woman's voice shouting for someone to get the fuck out of bed and get to work. You hear somebody yelling back, I don't want to work today! And you know, teens in this era are supposed to be more mature, but obviously when the maturity fairy was sprinkling dust over everyone, it kind of missed the younger person in this little hut. Eventually, the teen is bodily thrown out of the hut, tumbles a little bit, gets up, brushes herself off, mumbling curses under her breath, goes into the more crowded area of town, and arrives at a merchant shop with, some carts in the back, where she has been relatively newly appointed as one of their drivers. Mostly through connections and obviously not her own personality. So she shows up. Her employer, this well-dressed, very exasperated looking man looks at her, this is the third time this week that you've been late. And she very politely tells him, fuck off, and goes to the cart. And she jumps up on it, snaps the whips, and the horses, mules, whatever would be appropriate for Bronze Age, start, clip-clopping away. And she's just muttering and muttering, eventually calms herself down. And just kind of looking around, not really paying attention to what's going on. And as she's going through the wooded area, a couple of men step out of the forest in front of her cart, and the horses come to a stop. And they demand what's in the cart. And she gets this gleeful look on her face.
Here it is!
And she's like, how about this? I'll make you a bet. If you, between the two of you, can pin me, then you can have what's in the cart. However, if I can get at least one of you to his knees, then I get whatever you have. And the men laugh, she's about half their size. And they say, sure. And they immediately run up to grab and rip her off the seat, start beating her. And she smiles beautifully and knees one of them right in the crotch. And he immediately falls to his knees. The other one starts shouting, reaches for her knife. She's like, are you a man of your word or not? And violence ensues. She gets the shit beaten out of her. Stuff from the cart gets stolen. She doesn't know very much in the way of fighting. She just enjoys it right now. So, the horses are intact. The cart is intact. And she makes her way back to town. Black eyes, bloodied lip, and has to tell her boss what happened. She gets fired. Goes back home. Grandmother is very disappointed in her and tells her that she is going to have to start making her own way in the world. And as of that evening, she is homeless and she's going to have to find her own place to stay the night.
Okay. All right. I can't think of any particular places to insert additional conflict. That seems like a fairly natural progression. Which of these characters, the grandmother and the former boss, which of these characters is most important to you?
I would say to my character, the grandmother, because, they argue, but she really values her. She's the one who's taught her about culture, traditions, things like that. She wants to make her proud. She's a very angry young woman and has trouble expressing herself.
Okay. Do you have a name for the grandmother?
Let's go with Ane.
Ane?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what's your character's name?
Hey you.
Hey you? Right.
Daughter of Hey you.
Okay. So rather than adding an additional conflict for Heiyu, in the course of this, what I'll describe is that, actually, I do have a question here. When Heiyu is being kicked out and is effectively homeless, is it a pack your things and leave, or is it get the fuck out, stay out? I'm pissed.
I would say they support each other, they love each other, but they both have issues. So it might be a get out of my face, don't come back home until you've found something. You got fired, you're going to have to find another way to contribute to the family before I, waste any more time on you.
Okay. So as Heiyu is leaving her grandmother Ane, right?
Yeah, Ane.
Ane. Grandmother Ane is sitting in the, you described it as a hut?
Mm-hmm.
Is sitting in the hut. And like many of the homes in this region, there are going to be small altars. The rune cults are well known for their temples, and every village is going to have some sort of major ceremonial space in it. But each home will also have small altars with various implements that have connections to various deities and things like that, but also ancestors. Or family members in this case. Ane is going to be sitting there in a wooden chair that has been very nicely crafted. It's a rocker. She's sitting there next to the altar, and she picks up a small statue that your mother had made as a child. And just the scene ends with One just holding this small statue that represents your mother, and eventually closing her eyes, and the scene cuts to black.
So with Heiyu,
Mm-hmm.
when I was looking at these,
Mm-hmm.
she had only 18 in dodge. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about in regards to the fight. That's a large part of why she lost.
Sure.
And then her jump is 27, but I couldn't think of anything that would really help her against two grown men.
Right.
And then her intimidate is only 15. So
Yeah. No, that works. That works. She's got a little bit more spunk than skill at this point. Okay. And actually, again, because normally in the long-term campaign, one of the dictates for my role is that I should be judicious in handing out the checks. this would be especially true since you didn't actually roll anything, but I will let you put a check next to one of those skills. Actually, in this case, it would be either dodge, jump,
Or intimidate.
intimidate, or bargain.
I probably should have rolled for one of those, but I got caught up in my own story. So
Yeah, well, and at that point, it's kind of like, okay,
I'm probably gonna lose.
if you were hand waving yourself to victory, I might have jumped in. It's like, no, let's roll for that. But if you're hand waving your way to defeat, I'll let you keep talking.
Okay, I'm gonna say that just from getting the shit kicked out of her, she learned a little bit more about dodging.
Sounds
Move
good.
out of the way of the punches, not into them.
It's kind of the dodge equivalent of, do you know how to use a sword? Poke him with the...
Sharpened. But that same line of thinking is exactly why my character used his daggers instead of a bow or anything.
Okay, who's next?
Ooh, table's coming apart.
Oh no.
Yeah, be careful not to close it too much. There's wires.
Oh,
Yep.
It's an old table.
who got
Nice
next?
used.
What?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Cut to a busy market street in... Oh God, now I'm going to get it wrong because we've now assigned it two different names.
Wilford.
Wilford. Not Brimley. Wilford.
Just wait till I introduce an NPC named Brimley, and it gets even more confusing.
Brimley of Wilford.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, Wilford.
A rotund man in glorious finery, like the best silk robes money can buy, is ambling his way from stall to stall, buying things. He has a tender with him to actually carry the things, but give me 3 of those. And goes stall to stall. And is drawn into conversation by a particularly argumentative salesman. And is standing there reading the riot act and having it read right back to him. And bargaining and haggling for the price of a fine tapestry. While he is distracted and his boy is struggling under the load of bag after box, after chest, after just
Almost like
human pack meal.
yeah, the labyrinth, the lady that just gets piled with higher and higher with stuff. I'm picturing a kid just. Okay.
Somebody bumps into him. And suddenly his pocket's a little lighter.
Okay. I am gonna make you roll on that one.
Thank you.
Let's introduce another mechanic. First of all, you're going to be making a check, a skill check.
Okay.
And so I'm guessing that's going to be a slight, I think that's going to be like sleight of hand. Just under there as slight. Under manipulation, middle column.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be.
Okay.
So if you want to put any skill points into that, now's the time to do it.
Done.
The mechanic that I'd like to introduce is we showed how you can augment one skill with another. What I'd like you to do now is to use your runes to inspire yourself. So you can make a shadow check. And it works the same way. If you succeed at the shadow check, then your next roll is plus 20%.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Uh,
So, shadow...
Darkness.
Yeah, darkness.
Okay.
Darkness, yep.
So, I'm going to make a darkness check to make myself unseen.
The one downside to this, when you're using your runes for inspiration, is that if you flub the roll, you go into despair. So, like, don't roll 90 or higher.
Okay. $82.
Okay.
That's not gone well.
Okay, so go ahead and make your sleight of hands check. You don't get any bonuses.
Yeah, that's also no. I'm guessing.
What's
Big
your,
numbers bad.
What's your sleight of hand check?
20. I rolled a 66. My skill level is 25.
Okay, yep, that's gonna fail.
Okay.
Okay. So your character, by virtue of their darkness score, if I remember correctly, like that's one of your highest, right? Mm-hmm. You're a fairly sneaky character in general. But for some reason today, if you want to come up with a specific reason for this, you're more than welcome to. But it could be as simple as the sun is shining and it's warm and it's just a little out of character to be skulking around.
He's too hungry to focus.
Okay. You're off your game. You've been kind of set aside metaphysically by very real hunger pains. You go to steal some of the things, and you hear a yelp as the boy who's carrying everything, you've accidentally poked him. And all of the things that he's holding come tumbling down, making a huge mess. The master, let's see, call him Salone. Salone turns around, getting ready to chastise this poor kid, and the kid is carrying most of the things, but Salone has a little hand whip that he's carrying around for dramatic effect as he looks at the various wares, just something to kind of do with his hands since they're unoccupied. He turns to his boy and gets ready to just wail on him for his incompetence, and he sees you. And if you had played this off cool, you would just be somebody there while the boy failed. But you're standing there like, you're obviously a part of this. So, we can either take an action or we can cut there. How do you respond?
Run!
I grab one of the things that the boy has dropped and book it.
Okay. Give me a... Let's see...
Street rat.
Just start singing.
One step,
jump.
da,
Yeah.
da, da.
Yeah.
One step,
Thank
da,
you.
da, da.
Give me either a dodge or a jump check
Head of the
on
pack.
this. Or actually, if you want to, like I said with the augmentation, you can use one of those skills to augment the other.
What's your movement?
Gonna use...
Can you use your power runes to augment?
Actually, yes. In this case, I would say that if you have a high movement, you can use that to augment your escape.
I would like to do so.
Okay, give me a movement check.
Fuck these dice.
Okay, roll 1d6.
Oh no.
You're gonna get smacked.
Oh!
Reduce your movement rune score by 5.
Ouch.
And which means that the corresponding one, stasis, goes up by 5. and you are going to be in a bit of despair. To see if you get away before that kicks in, go ahead and give me either a dodge or a jump check.
I'm gonna go with my jump check.
Okay.
Let's see, 27.
You got 35 on the die.
Nope. I'm getting the stuffing beat out of me today.
You are getting the stuff and beat out of you.
Same.
The last scene, or the last shot that we see of that is Salone. Like, you've reached down to grab something, and in the process of turning around, what was it that you tried to grab?
A loaf of bread.
Cue the music. But it's not just any bread. This is this is made with grain from the farms of Sartor, which have a very specific flavor. Specifically, it's going to be the eastern side of Sartor that borders on the Plainlands. It's
Dice jail.
It's a very specific and very rare flavor. You've gone down to pick it up, except you've underestimated how solid it is. You're used to stale bread. You've squished the bread.
Oh.
It's still almost like doughy. So you've gone to pick it up and squished it, and the amount of money that you've just squished dawns on you as you look at it. You look up, and Salone is barreling down on you. Wham! You're going to be dragged to one of the temples. There aren't really jails to speak of, but the temples double as administrators and overseeing of the law. So you are going to be reprimanded before a judge. Okay, who's next? By the way, what was your character's name?
Azotan.
Okay. Who's next?
Olivia, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I want you to go.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out what I want.
Okay, well. Here's
Get
where
ready
I'm
for
gonna
sadness.
pull out
And if a scene isn't coming, you can also throw it to the crowd, and we can workshop it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Kiana, what's her name?
Okay.
Kiana is at work. She was sold into slavery as a young child, and she is actually a baker's slave. So she works at a bakery. And I had that whole thing before you even said bread.
And suddenly, wheat and bread became the staple of the campaign.
Deer meat.
Oh, that's it. You all are going to be enlisted to prepare the food for a feast.
Oh man, not again.
Okay.
Invention of the sandwich.
Deer meat. No, bread. Deer meat. Wait.
We need cheese.
What's a cheese?
Most epic campaign ever. Changed the world forever.
Your character becomes the female Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah. What is this shit?
No, seriously, what is this shit?
You really want to get the feces of the mountain elk. It adds a different flavor.
She
It's the berries.
she grew up in the camp area and has met Daria. No, sorry, Arya is what her name, not Daria. Who has taught her the way of the moon. And
okay.
she's a worker at the bakery, and she's kind of just taught Kiana how to fit into society. And that's about all I got right now.
So are you wanting to have a good day or a bad day?
I'm not saying either one because he'll just do the opposite.
No. I'm a kind and gentle game master.
I mean, so far we've had one person who had a relatively good day and 2 people who got the ever-loving fuck out of them.
I rolled a 7 on my percentile dice.
And I take no responsibility for yours.
I mean, you really shouldn't. I should have shut up at some point and let you do something. Fair.
Okay.
You let me beat myself up.
I love it when that happens. I always say that I'm not a bloodthirsty GM, but I do love it when players destroy, like, self-sabotage.
Yeah, he gets this smile and you're just like, oh, crap.
I'm just waiting for what hell comes to me for having 100% beast.
So if this woman is teaching you the way of the goddess, and is a very kind woman, maybe part of your initial thing is you could ask her, is there a way to gain my freedom? And see if she freaks out or if she actually starts to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit more about Arya. Like, is she your age? Is she older? Is she younger?
She is about. I'm going to say I'm like 15.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's about what everybody else has been doing. And I'm going to say she's around 18.
Okay, so she's a little
She's
bit older.
a little bit older, but she knows more about the culture than I did because I was more brought into the culture than born into it.
And I have.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. I have one more question. Was she born and raised in this area, or is she from north in the heart of the empire?
Let's say she's from, like, north in the middle of the empire.
Okay. All right.
She's, like, up here. And I'm, like, way down here.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna say that you said that she's teaching you the way of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picturing her, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm picturing her as not just being a little bit older than you, but she's actually the daughter of not one of the soldiers, but one of the officers at the camp.
Okay.
And so the teaching that she's providing you is kind of an off the books sort of thing. You meet off in the corner, and she provides the lessons. Is that?
I'm kind of thinking like I'm making the bread or kneading the bread, and she's over. We're kind of talking in a way. I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I was seeing her as more as she works there, just
Okay.
like as an after school job kind of thing. And she comes over, and when the baker isn't looking, she gives me lessons and teaches me.
Okay.
one of the ways that people are able to achieve some amount of social mobility is by joining the priesthood and rising through the ranks of their cults.
Okay.
If she's teaching you the way of the moon, it's entirely possible that she herself is being tutored, and that the lessons, like when she talks to you, it's basically her like repeating the lessons that she herself has been taught. So you're kind of getting a second hand from the rune lord of the keep.
That works. Yeah.
Okay. So here's my question. So you're both in the bakery, and you're both working on making the bread for the day. And she's reciting the various things about, in this case, it's going to be the Cult of the Seven Mothers is the one that is strongly based on the moon. You recognize that she misspoke. She got something wrong. How do you respond?
Well, actually.
Did you mean?
I kind of try and play it off as, oh, it's this, but I could have sworn you had said it was this. And see her reaction. And if she gets really mad, then I'm just going to play really dumb.
Okay, let's start with, this sounds an awful lot like a charm check.
Okay.
And if you'd like to augment that by making a moon check, that would make sense.
Okay.
You can either augment it with making a moon check or a cult lore check.
I'll do a moon check.
Okay. All right, give me that check first.
And it's...
A percentile, yep. You need to get equal to or lower than your moon score.
Don't think that
No,
did it.
that's another roll 1d6 for me. Okay, your moon score drops by 4. And go ahead and give me a charm check.
Oh.
The big failures they kind of sting a little. 13%. What's your charm? 30%? Okay, go ahead and put a check mark next to it. You succeed. So as Arya is rattling off these various facts about the moon and the elemental powers of the moon and the seven mothers of the Red Empire's cult, she makes a mistake, and you're able to very gently correct her. And walking away from it, the kinship and the equity and the equality of the relationship, she's gone from seeing you as somebody that she's just reciting the stuff to, and to you're actually almost more like you're a fellow student.
Okay.
Yay!
Yay!
Happy day in slavery.
I don't get beat! Yay!
I stuck some flour away so I could eat tonight.
No, we made 3 extra rolls. They just disappeared. The rats got them.
They fall on the floor. They had to be thrown away.
This is Bronze Age. If it falls on the floor, it's fine.
If it falls in the feces, you wipe it off.
That one's for the soldiers.
I put something special in it.
Don't give that one to the nobility.
Or maybe
The chief, the rune master of the camp, who has been overseeing the education of the new initiates. Given his title and his position, he doesn't need to do this, but it's something that he goes above and beyond to try to foster the youth and encourage them in their studies, because they're so far from the heartland of the empire that teaching them the proper ways is all the more important. Our scene ends with later that day. Arya has gone to Sorsen and has commented that there's a girl working in the bakery who has a stunning knowledge of the moon goddess. You really should see if she has potential to be initiated into the cult.
I misspoke. I'm getting beat today.
I haven't been beat yet.
And Sorsen is sitting in chairs with cushions are only the elite. This is a prestigious thing for him to have this. He's sitting there in what amounts to it's almost as embellished as a recliner, with all of the cushioning. There's a large wooden desk that has been carved.
I'm listening.
That has been carved with runes from the Lunar Empire. There are scrolls lining the wall behind him. He has a map drawn out in front of him as Arya is standing there talking. And at first he wasn't paying a lot of attention. But the more she speaks, he sets down his notes and looks up. And the scene cuts with him raising an eyebrow at the mentioning of the baker's slave.
I'm getting beat today.
Maybe.
Okay.
or maybe you just go and learn today.
Maybe this is how you eventually become queen of the camp.
Okay. Olivia, what do you think?
Okay. I don't really have a scene. I've got some information.
Okay.
I should just throw it out there.
Yeah, you
What do you
can
think?
throw anything on the table that you want. If there's, and it can be as basic as a skill that you want to try out, and a name of an NPC that you care about.
Okay, so my character's name is Neve.
Okay.
She's 14. And I would say I don't know who to like make the number one. She's very close with her mother and her aunt and her grandmother, but I'm gonna say her aunt is maybe the most important.
Okay.
And her name is Oshin.
Oshin. Okay.
And so I'm kind of thinking for an occupation for her, I chose healer.
Okay.
And I'm kind of thinking that maybe like her family is actually merchants, but she just is naturally just really, really good at, she's really good with like plants, and so she makes really good I don't know, appointments
Sabs.
and things
CBD
like
oil.
that. And so kind of the people in her, CBD oil, sure. The people in her community,
mellow
even though they
community.
have like a healer, they've kind of started to go to this girl because she's got better.
Okay. And the Wilford is going to be. It's a fairly large city.
Sure.
So you've probably been apprenticed to somebody that focuses on healing.
Okay.
And it might be one of those cases where your prestige, like the recommendations that are being given to people to visit you specifically, is beginning to draw attention. You are showing a lot of promise in this field. There is a knock on the door, and remember, this is a fairly large city as far as these civilizations go. So your family, if you're living in the city, you might have a multi-story house.
Okay.
With the family largely living together. There is and I'm kind of picturing the setup for kind of the middle class being there's a courtyard with multi-story buildings around the courtyard.
Okay.
So kind of a very small cul-de-sac of sorts, except instead of a road, it's like plants and things. So there's a knock on the door from the courtyard. You you can be in your room and like which part of the house are you in? Where do you hang out casually?
I would say I'm probably in the kitchen with my aunt and my grandma,
Okay.
sitting around the table, talking.
Okay. All right. Then with the knock on the door, Aunt Oshin goes to answer it. There's a pause, and you hear a coughing coming from the door. Aunt Oshin calls to you. Neve! And she ushers in the guest. It's a man that you recognize from earlier, from your apprenticeship. The healer from the temple that you've been apprenticed to is Oshara.
Is it the guy who beat Robert?
No. No, we're not going to get that incestuous just yet. Though, we could make it Salone. Yeah, let's fuck it. Let's make it Salone. Salone is standing there. He's described as a very rotund man, and now I'm picturing him almost like if you want to use as a visual basis, like the Kingpin, with like bald head, except in this case with like ornate earrings that droop down, rings and finery. He's there with a younger person, maybe 24 years old. The younger person is when you glance at him, this is the person that you recognize from earlier with Oshara. she had given him an ointment to help with the blemishes that were developing on his skin. They've gotten worse. And Salone walks forward. He has a bag of the currency. It's called lunars. It's a bag of lunars. He gestures and says, "My young cousin, he was sick. We went to Oshara. Oshara has failed. We've heard that you might be able to succeed where your master has not." He takes out one of the lunars that's on the table. "Heal my young cousin. The rest is yours."
Okay.
So, do you have a specific response that you want to make?
I would just say, let me see what I've got.
Okay. This is going to be either this would be treat disease.
Okay.
If you got anything you want to augment it with.
Augment.
If you have another skill that you want to use to assist your treat disease.
Could my plant lore help with the treat disease?
Definitely. That is a solid roll.
Or, rolling with runes has gone really well so far.
Oh yeah, it could have possibly backfired. Half of our characters in the session, like sitting in the corner, staring at the shadow, feeling their inner turmoil being projected onto the wall.
Sounds like a Friday night for me.
I thought we came to a play, for escapism. This is my life.
So what do I roll for that? How do I
Okay.
do that?
So if you want to use your plant lore to assist, first you make a plant lore check.
Okay.
And what's your score on plant lore?
50.
50? Okay. And if you want to add any additional points from your pool, because remember you had 100 points.
Right.
It,
I don't think I want to add any more.
Okay.
Because I've already added some.
Okay, so for plant lore, go ahead and make the roll. If you get 50 or lower, your next check is easier.
Okay. With this dice?
You
Two.
want that and
Oh.
another D10.
This and... two of these?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
one just regular D10
Yeah.
and 1 percentile.
Oh.
That. Because
This
that'll be
and
your
this.
tens place and that'll be your ones place.
Okay.
Effectively.
71.
Okay, so it's not going to assist you, but it's
Okay.
not terrible.
Okay.
You're more or less gonna it's not gonna hurt your chances. Let's
Okay.
just leave it at that.
Okay. So
And
then I just roll for the treat disease?
yes.
Okay.
And again, if you want to add any points to it, now's the time to do it.
So that one's a 45.
Okay.
Should I add points to it?
That's your
What am
call.
I trying to get? I'm trying to get a high number or a low
You're
number?
trying to get below 45.
Yeah.
So
Oh, so the higher it is, the more likely
You
are
are
to
to
get
succeed.
below that.
yeah.
Right now you have a 45% chance of succeeding.
I guess I'll bump it up a little bit.
To 46.
Exactly as planned.
No, I'm gonna bump it up to 55.
Okay.
Okay, and then the same too?
Yep.
Okay. Mother. Got a 58.
Oh,
Damn.
narrowly failed.
Alright, so what happens now?
Okay, I'll give you two options
You
on this.
haven't killed him.
Wait for it. I'll give you two options on this one.
Uh-huh.
The first option is that you give the cousin treatment
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't take.
Mm-hmm.
The second option is that you look at his condition and say, I can't do this. Like I know some of the stuff, but I'm not ready to treat.
I think I'm gonna go with the second option and just say I don't have what I need to treat this.
Okay. The next question is, do you want... I'm going to want to roll for this as well. Do you want to make this a bargain, charm, or intimidate check?
I can't treat this. Damn it, I'm a doctor, not a miracle worker.
I guess a bargain?
Bargain?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll treat part of you.
I'll keep this lunar, and you get the fuck out of my house.
Do you also have acid reflux? Because I could treat that.
I can help with that baldness.
You got a scrape there. I could probably help with that one.
Oh, I can't make the blemishes go away, but I have some makeup.
Let me take some payments so that I can go buy you supplies for later.
It's called health insurance. You have to pay your premium first.
Neve comes up with health insurance. First ever health insurance. It's a scam. Okay. So I make that check the same?
Yes. Unless you want to augment it with anything.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be good.
I don't know, speak language.
Yeah.
Speak own language?
Speak own language would work. You could also throw in your plant lore again.
Okay.
Talk jargon at him.
I mean, my speak own language is at 100, so how would that work?
Okay. I hadn't clarified it earlier. It's wonky. It's only 50%.
Okay.
On the rules there were things that said plus something, and there were ones that said just the amount.
Oh.
So I was seeing if I could get away with not correcting that, but it's
So
only
the speak
50%.
own language is only 50.
Yes.
Okay. That's kind of... I only speak my own language 50%. I only have a 50% chance of speaking my own language.
Have you seen most people on Facebook?
You have a 50% chance of misspeaking or not articulating well.
Just a little bit. So, kind of like right now I've had developed kind of an adult stutter lately.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Just every now and then your brain just kind of
Yeah,
spazzes
exactly.
a little bit. Cool. Okay. So I guess I'll add that.
Okay, go ahead.
So
and
roll for that. So I want to roll below a 50.
Yes. So this is basically how eloquently do you speak.
Okay. Oh my god. Roll something low. This is ridiculous. 8.
8.
You speak real good.
Okay. That's actually, and this is one of those things where I'm gonna have to double check the rules. The way it works is that critical successes and special successes are based on a percentage of what you would need to roll.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher your skill is, the better chance you have of making a critical. I'm going to go ahead and treat that as a special success because I don't remember. There's a fucking chart and I don't want to look it up. So your bargain is going to be at plus 30%.
Okay.
So what's your current bargain score?
10.
10?
So the new one would be
You're at
40.
40%.
Just for this roll.
Yes.
11.
Okay, you got him!
Ching.
Ooh.
He, are you still willing to try to take this on your own? You're basically like, I'll take some money and I'll go get better supplies, or are you going to be deferring to Oshara?
No, I'm still interested in trying to help him. I'm just gonna say I'm ill-equipped right now, but I think I can get what I need to help him.
He gives you some additional lunars to cover your expenses.
Okay.
But he also turns to the cousin and says, sit. And then he leaves.
Oh, so this guy's in my living room till I heal him.
Oshin is standing there with your grandmother and you, now looking at this 24-year-old weak-willed, quiet young man that Salone has brought in, who has what might be a contagious disease, sitting in the corner of your kitchen.
Good times.
Oshin looks to you.
Ba-dum-bum.
Wah, wah. That's so Neve.
And goes back to cooking the food, but like taking over the spot where you were with the expectation that you have to go take care of business now.
Right, okay.
Yay.
Okay, so everybody got their introductory scenes?
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Okay, I'm gonna say another 5-minute break.
Okay.
And with this mic, I might throw in like an ending scene, and then we'll call it a session. Because I'm gonna start going downhill pretty soon.
Okay.
The trade route that goes from the capital of... Now I'm fucking it up. Where are we again?
Dismiss magic?
Yes, that's exactly where we are. Isrolia. The trade route that goes up to the north along the I think it's the Lycos River, not the Whitefall River. The new trade route. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, the Lycos River. Traveling up through the north into the Lunar Empire territories, the ethnic Sartarians. There is a caravan that is traveling. They've come from distant lands. It's a major caravan, maybe 40 wagons long. And some of it is simple trade. Some of it are the silks, like Salone wears. Some of it are spices. Some of it are various food types, dehydrated figs. Some of it is alcoholic beverages and beers that are stored in large ceramic urns. Some of it is from the Lunar Empire itself. But this is because merchants band together for caravans like these. The highlight of it, though, the last 15 to 20 of the wagons house a famous merchant. Not merchant, a famous traveler, famous explorer. The kind of man who has legends about him in his own lifetime. And specifically, most of those wagons are dedicated to animals of various sorts, various stripes, sometimes literally. Exotic beasts from the plains to the east. Fanciful, monstrous bears from the far north. An entire menagerie.
I'll run away and join the circus.
I want to eat one.
The menagerie has countless animals. Some of them are small and docile. Some of them are large with an entire wagon dedicated to them. The bars made from the strongest alloys that are known. Imbued with mystic energy to keep the large, like a large cat. Imagine a tiger with barbs on its tail, but larger. Many of the wagons have special guards accompanying them. The destination, not all of the merchants are going to go the full distance down through Isrolia, but this is part of a diplomatic pact. He intends to visit with the Queen Priestess herself and bring many of these exotic animals as gifts for the court of Isrolia. And maybe make some money along the way. by showing them off. Each time they stop at a major city, it's an opportunity to show the local nobilities this grandiose display. There are 3 wagons in particular, heavily guarded, no windows. The walls are solid. There are whispers about what's inside of these wagons. Nobody hears roars. Nobody hears the kinds of loud noises that are associated with things like the tigers and the bears and all these other monstrous creatures. Those wagons are quiet, except for the occasional the people who guard them are not allowed to look into them, with the exception of the personal assistant of this grandiose man. And that personal assistant is the only one who is allowed to feed the creatures inside of these last wagons. The camera cuts, and inside one of those wagons we see just tiny slits of light from the very tops of the wagon shining in. There are 4 people in the wagon. Nude except for furs that they wear on their backs. They're chained to the walls of the wagon. The youngest one, a child, claws at the bronze lining of the interior, the fingers digging into the metal and scraping through it. Cutscene.
Oh shit.
Actually, we see that, then we jump back out, and we see the caravan slowly moving south towards Isrolia. Its next major stop, Wilford.
Okay.
Okay. So now I want to do just a quick follow-up on some of your scenes. So, let's start with Hey You.
It's pronounced Heu.
Hey You. Hey You.
Hey you.
Oh.
It's gonna be on a who's on first. Hey you! What? No, not you! No, I'm not you. I'm Hey you.
It's probably going to happen at some point, yes.
Freehold and the Badahald settlements are at the base of the Skyreach Mountains, but you're still fairly high up in the elevation. A wet wind is coming in, and the temperatures will be dropping as nightfall approaches. You've been kicked out of your home. Where do you go?
My character, lovable moron that she is, has convinced herself that if she can retrieve the lost items from the bandits, she might be allowed back home.
Okay, so you're off to track the bandits down. Okay.
She might need the help of an experienced hunter.
Do you two know each other, or are we playing this up as coincidence?
How big of a place would you say Freehold is?
Freehold itself, we're probably talking,
Like in reference to Wichita nearby cities.
Individual satellite villages might be as little as like 120 people per satellite village. And most of those it's a loose knit network. So in the region, you're probably still talking less than 1,000 people.
Chances are my character doesn't has a house somewhere, but isn't normally there.
But if the merchant that you sold your meat and stuff to was the same one I was working for, we might have passed each other at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a vague, acquaintance, maybe introduced once in their lives.
Your relationship is however you guys want to define it.
You have a preference?
He's probably seen you more times than you've noticed him.
Creepy. I like it.
Well, you've been traveling with the wagon,
Well,
right?
and my character is always swearing at the top of her lungs, so it's very
that's
likely
exactly
that
what
more
I
people
meant.
see her than...
That's exactly what I meant.
So and now with these kinds of suggestions, you can always correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the scene that I'm seeing is it's because the sun is retreating and it's becoming nightfall. The stationary moon is becoming increasingly visible above the treetops, and the chill of the misty mountainside is beginning to set in. And you know that you shouldn't be out in this shit. But what else are you gonna do? You gotta track down the bandits, and fuck it, they're that way somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining you walking along a side path. The smart thing to do would be to stealthily and quietly move. And you're fucking, yelling expletives as you go.
Every time I trip over something, I can't see it. So I'm gonna die so quickly.
Is it snowy currently, or?
I'm gonna be very simple. Imagine the weather outside right now.
Okay.
It's a little bit colder than it is here.
So I'm gonna say Grandma let me leave with at least a coat and some boots.
Because I was going to say, if it was snowing, my character would be rinsing his hands and his clothes in the snow to get rid of the deer blood.
Okay.
But he doesn't want to travel that far north to the mountain area to get snow, so...
Oh, we can say that there's a light snow going on right now.
Okay.
It's the precipitation is still mostly a fog, but there's a light snow coming in.
Mm-hmm. And he's set up his meat from the deer carcass, wrapped in basically cheesecloth a couple of times, set in a place that he knows will collect the most snow. And he's kind of leaving it there for now, and he's placed other bits of meat kind of around so scavenging animals would go for the more readily available meat. And he's kind of just, rinsing off his hands and stripping one piece of clothing at a time and washing it and then, putting it back on and trying to warm it back up with his body heat before moving on to the next one.
And God fucking damn it! Son of a bitch!
Yeah.
You recognize the voice,
The
too.
entire forest. Fuck this
Do
root.
you want
Fuck that
to
tree.
make me use a compel for my beast rune?
Well, tell you what. One of the things that's encouraged in the rules is if a player is not certain how they should respond, they should roll against one of the runes to see if they respond according to that rune.
I'm going
Would you like to roll against your beast to see if you respond?
I want to see how much I respond. So it's not an if I respond, it's
Okay.
how much I respond. 46. He immediately stops. He doesn't even reach for his daggers. He basically grabs the ground with his hands and throws himself forward and skids to a stall and looks up and around and finds her.
What the hell?
But it looks very unnatural. He the way he grabs and pushes throws himself and then
I'm
pushes his
picturing a
legs up.
seal in my mind.
Well, it's more you know how like when dogs run, like their front legs go out and then their back legs come. He kind of bends in a way that like a human body doesn't really normally bend.
Your spine isn't made for that.
Yeah, and then kind of like skids to a stall.
Do I need to roll perception to see if I notice him?
That would be a scan check. And if you want to oppose this, if you're hiding at all, it would be a
Hide.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for.
Oh, that's right. You're using my dice.
Yeah, hide.
You can use them.
96 is probably not the best score.
You ain't seeing shit. you actually. Are you trying to?
This was more of like the bestial response of something's here.
Okay.
So he kind of like skids to a stall, I'd say like maybe 20 feet away from her.
Okay, but you're not actively hiding.
No.
Okay.
Damn it!
You skid to a stop within relatively easy view. Meanwhile, Heu is oblivious to the fact that you're like stopped behind her as she walks forward.
She's focused.
Off the kick bandit ass.
He's currently wearing a very sodden shirt and like leggings. Like he never wears shoes, but like his leggings are dry, but like his shirt is absolutely still soaked from snow, still kind of dripping blood. It looks much fresher now that he's tried to clean it off. And he's got his bandolier with two daggers on it, and he has his other stuff where he knows where it is, but hopefully no one else does.
Mm-hmm.
So like he kind of like stops. Hey, you.
I don't know why, but for some reason I thought you were about to say he's not wearing his pants yet, so you're taking him off to wash them.
No,
I was relieved when you mentioned breeches.
no. Like he had just put his shirt on and stopped before he got to the breeches.
What's your character's name again? Biff?
Biff.
Okay. Biff is looking around like doesn't see anything, is looking up for some reason.
You expect Biff to be in the trees.
I mean, it wouldn't exactly be odd. But just, she's been blindsided for her moment of focused rage and is now just kind of like, what the fuck's going on? Where am I?
This isn't your house.
Finds him. I don't have a home at the moment. Excuse me.
Where'd it go?
He points at her and goes, my forest.
No, she's not trying to hunt. That he knows.
It's like,
Oh, she's hunting. She's hunting the most dangerous prey
most dangerous
of all.
game.
Yes.
It's like,
Mountain lions?
No, assholes.
Grandma kicked me out until I could do something productive. So I'm gonna go hunt down some bandits and take back what's belonged to my boss and get my job back.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Do you know where they are?
No.
Do you want to know where they are?
Yes, please.
This would be a track check.
I don't want to cheat and use the beast rune to roll to increase that, even though it would make sense with tracking down things. I just feel like that's...
I'm
part of who
okay
you
with
are.
it.
Okay.
Because what it will do is, if you succeed at your beast roll, which, let's be honest, it's kind of a gamble, you will get a plus 20% to your track. So
Okay.
unless your track is like 70%,
Yeah, it's my track's a 20 because I forgot about that when I was making a
then
hunter.
this is entirely appropriate.
Alright. Hey, I succeeded.
Okay, well, the key part here is you succeeded, but it's not a special success and it's not a critical success.
Mm-hmm.
So you only get plus 20% to your track.
Okay, so my track's at 40.
Yeah.
I don't get them.
You do, however, begin leading off the path.
Or Do we want to put it where I find them but she doesn't, or
I'm
I mean, I've got no better clue than to follow you. So.
I'm kind of invested in you.
I
Like,
find a deer instead or something?
Like, this is not the bandits.
our scene is going to end with the two of you wandering off into the woods on the frozen night to find the bandits.
Okay.
The blind leading the blind.
Because your character, like with the 100% beast, is rather badass in his own way. You're still a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. I purposely wanted to have something where it's like, that one thing is like super incredible, but it's also really bad.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
So we'll cut there. The pickup from that would either be you guys will eventually find the bandits, or we'll have like more interactions or a random encounter, like a random encounter. Okay, so we'll cut there with the two of you heading off. Like the camera zooms out, and you disappear into the trees. With
Thank you, sir.
with Hayu having a slight quizzical moment of uncertainty as you leave any
Like, you see
recognizable
her turning
path.
around and pointing, like, that's where I saw that. Why are we going? Okay.
You trust the beast, man.
I'm trying to smell. Be quiet.
She has no idea how you track, so just maybe this applies, and I'll be quiet.
You do indeed smell, so you're succeeding.
I've been trying to wash it off in the snow.
Quietly muttering
With
to
the
herself what her plans are for the bandits when she finds them.
Using mud to wash yourself might not be the most...
Oh, it's snow, not mud.
Mud.
If you want to hide the human smell, you have to cover it up.
Okay.
It's like in Predator.
The next scene, it's still... We went from nighttime there. It's still nighttime in the next scene. The next scene is on the outside of the walls of the camp, like the main fortress. There's the main fortress, then there is a small settlement around it. Neve has been sent with a load of supplies. The rejected bread to go to some of the people working in the small settlement around the camp itself.
Who are you talking about?
Oh, did I say Neve?
Yes.
Oh.
I was like, I don't think she would do that, but I'm gonna let you go where you're gonna go.
Yeah, no, Kiana, I'm sorry.
I feel like that's more chill.
Kiana. Like I said, I've
get it.
peaked and I'm starting.
It's cool. I just
Kiana.
wanted to make sure I wasn't supposed to be like.
And I'm sitting here going, who are you talking about?
Kiana. Yeah, I'm speaking to Kiana. Kiana has been given a load of supplies to take to the settlement around the camp. Walking by the barracks is rather ominous. The camp itself, there's a primary fortress that is well fortified. The expansion of the barracks extends beyond those fortified walls. And there is a secondary wall, and then the barracks extend even beyond that. And the walls haven't been fortified at all. Walking past these barracks is unnerving. In the moonlight, the emptiness of them is profound. The buildings that you walk by could easily be housing 100 or 200 people. And they are still They are quiet. You can feel a distant chill from the mountains roll in. There's a light fog. And everything reminds you of ghost stories that you heard as a child. And stories that were embellished by the other slaves, specifically to make you worry. Did you worry when you heard the stories? Or was it something that you...
We'll say I was slightly concerned.
Okay. So you're a little bit on edge, but it's...
Yeah, a little bit on edge, but I'm okay. Ish.
Ghosts exist in stories, but you're not likely to see them. Give me a scan check. You walk by trying to not be unnerved by the rows and rows of empty buildings when you don't realize it, but you walk directly by somebody.
Oh.
He's an older man, in his 50s, relatively frail, with a balding head and white hair. Before you see him, you smell him. He smells of incense. He coughs. You look around. It's Sorsen, the rune lord of the camp. He walks up to you, and the direction that you're walking, he keeps walking that way. If, after he gets a couple steps ahead of you, he turns around and says something to the effect of, "One mustn't delay one's tasks," and looks toward where you were heading, expecting you to continue on with him walking beside you. How do you respond?
I mean, okay. I guess I keep on walking and I ask him why he's following me. Or, very nicely, I might say, since he is way higher in rank than I am. By, like, a lot. And I'm trying not to get beat today.
Okay.
I'm trying really hard.
Give me a, you can make this a bargain. Like, what I'm wanting you to do is to give me an insight check, but you can augment it with charm or fast talk. Probably not intimidate.
I got that, but I mean...
I would not recommend it in these circumstances.
I wasn't going to.
You could try it. We'll see how that plays out for you.
Let's not. I don't want to intimidate him. So, charm and what else?
Charm or fast talk.
We'll do charm.
Give me a charm roll. See if you can...
13.
13? Okay. So your insight check, this would be own species. Because you succeeded at the augmentation, that is now a 40. Well, temporarily,
Just
for this roll. Just for this roll.
Got me all excited.
Yeah. He casually, as you inquire why he's following you, he casually, "I am following the moon. It is a nightly practice for me to enjoy the presence of our goddess. Tell me, child, how much have you heard about the stories of our goddess?"
I feel like this is a trap.
It is an invitation to make a moon check, and if you'd like to augment that with a knowledge, what is
Would it be
it?
cult lore
Cult lore. Yep.
or celestial lore?
Celestial lore would work too.
I have celestial lore.
Yeah. So give me the celestial lore, and we'll see if that gives you advantage on.
No.
Okay, now give me a moon check.
Two.
You got a 2. That counts as a critical success.
Yes!
Yay!
As you walk in the moonlight, talking with the rune lord of the camp, you miss some of the details, but the spirit of the stories is immediately ascertainable. The rune lord is significantly impressed, and you get the feeling that you have in the very near future, you will have opportunities to rise within the cult. The camera again pans, zooms out as the walk continues. And what was once an interrogative, casual interrogation, turns into an actual banter.
Okay.
She's gonna become a queen again.
Go ahead and put a check next to Moon. So that's where we end on that. And we've got 2 more scenes that I want to get to.
Where's the street rat?
He's in the harem. the brothel.
That's why you didn't have money for food.
Okay. Salone has long since dropped you off. He has given his disposition to one of the priests, and you are now sitting in a row with 2 other delinquents who are waiting to be given judgment by one of the higher up priests. You know, I'm assuming this is not your first altercation.
No.
So you, at this point, you basically know the drill. You're going to be not gang pressed, but you're going to be volunteered into civic duty.
Voluntold.
Yep.
Indentured.
But the way this works, you're basically going to be somewhere between an intern and a slave.
What's the difference?
It's your turn next, and you're brought before the priestess. She is a larger woman who sits on a chair. There are a couple other officials. Her robes, the priestess's robes, they were once very fine, but they've kind of dulled out a little bit. She seems to have concerns beyond just the immediate material. The Salone's disposition is presented to her, and she nods. And you've been through this. The priestess motions, and one of the assistants walks, not assistant, but another priestess, but of lower rank, walks forward. the priestess in charge of this. Leanna, another delinquent for your workforce. Have you worked under Leanna before? Or is this new?
Leanna's new, but he's worked under various other lower priestesses. They sort of come and go from this temple.
Okay. Let's see. What? I don't think on reputation. Did we do anything with reputation?
We all have a reputation of 5.
5. Okay. Go ahead and roll 1d6 and add that to your reputation.
Okay. I didn't know that we had a reputation of anything.
You have a reputation of 11. So somebody give me percentile. Okay. Leanna, she doesn't quite recognize you at first. But she nods. How do you respond to being assigned to Leanna?
At the moment, I keep my fucking mouth shut. I have been in these types of situations enough times to know anything you say can and will be used against you. So I just...
You get the immediate sense from Leanna that Leanna is a fairly ambitious priestess. She's new to this particular temple, but she was highly recommended to it. She's a up-and-coming rising star, so to speak. As you are assigned to her, she looks to you. Do you have anything to say for yourself?
3 hots and a cot.
He puts on his best puppy dog face. I was hungry.
Oh.
Give me a charm check. And do you want to either augment this or use one of your runes?
Well, I was almost thinking because he is, like, literally, he is putting on a face.
Uh-huh.
I was kind of leaning towards disguise. He's...
It's a little bit...
Yeah, it's a stretch.
What
too much of a
are your
stretch.
truth illusion runes like?
Yeah, illusion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go with that. What's your illusion score?
75.
You got it!
I was real scared. I was like, I'm gonna get bad advice.
And
Okay, so
More
you
to spare.
you got plus 20% to your charm.
still not going to go well. Not gone well. Charm's like a 35 still.
Even with the plus 20?
Yeah,
Oh boy. Okay.
I'm getting beat again. Damn it.
You get a walloping upside the head. Turns to the priestess. Bows. Turns to you. The good news is you'll be fed after you work. And she gestures to another room where you'll be assigned menial tasks until the big event that she's going to be preparing for comes up. Actually, no, let's go ahead and say that you and one other delinquent are assigned to her and will be shadowing her as she goes about her duties. Okay? Okay. And go ahead and put a check mark next to one of those skills. Which means there's one more scene, and then I'm going to call it because I am totally dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Neve. And this time it is Neve. that last scene and this scene are the next day.
Okay.
About midday. I'm picturing you as you're getting those supplies, getting the herbs from the market. And one of the best places, the temples of Ronalda are they're fertility. It's a fertility cult, but it's also a healing cult. So you have to go to one of the temples to get some of the best supplies, and to get supplies that have been blessed by the grandmothers of Isolia. As you are talking to one of the people who can procure the herbs for you from the temple, there is an assistant that comes, and it's the assistant of somebody that's higher up in the temple. And he says, "My lady would like a word with you."
Okay.
And he gestures. He directs you into a building that will be leading up to the second floor, that's next to the temple proper. Standing outside the door, there are two delinquents.
Oh. Okay.
Sister Leanna is inside
Okay.
and gestures, and you recognize the name.
Sure.
You're acting as a healer puts you in some contact with the comings and goings of the priests and the priestesses. Liana is standing there and is tending to some plants. It's one of these rooms where part of it is covered in shadow, but it goes out, and there's no wall. So the second half of the room is open air, and there's a garden there. Leona turns to you with a smile on her face. It takes a moment for her to say anything. Do you do anything?
Probably not. Just kind of
Okay.
wait for her to speak.
Word is traveling fast, Neve, that your ability at healing is very noteworthy. She prunes a plant to spur its growth in certain ways. She stops and turns to you. Word is that people even believe that you're already surpassing Oshara.
Okay.
I'm getting the names right?
Yep.
Okay. You're even surpassing your master, Oshara. Is this true? She turns away from you and is going back to the plant. Is this true?
I would say I don't really know what people are saying about me.
Okay. Do you want to make that a roll, or you don't
No.
want to? Okay.
I'm good with it.
She nods. She stops. Tell me, Neve. And she turns around. Have you ever considered joining the priesthood?
I would say Neve's considered it.
She picks up a plant that you recognize as one of the ones that you were looking for. It almost radiates. It has been directly blessed by a high priest. She picks some of the leaves and puts them in a piece of high quality fabric and folds it and walks it over and hands it to you. If you're so inclined, I can make these opportunities open to you.
Okay.
I would be willing to personally oversee the beginnings of your journey.
Okay, so she's like being like really cool, but inside she's like a little bit freaking out.
Okay. I do want to check on that one.
Whether I hide my like freaking out now?
Yes.
What would that be?
We can make this an earth rune check.
Oh, okay.
Or
Stable.
a power check. A power check would be your power times 5. Which in your case, 50. You want an earth check or...
Let's do an earth check.
Okay. Give me that roll.
And it was these two, right?
Yes.
12.
12%. You got it. You feel the butterflies rising in your stomach as you try to ground yourself, and you're able to present yourself as cool, calm, and collected, and are able to show the appropriate appreciation.
Sure.
She is somewhat surprised at your composure, but this is the reason why she was extending this offer.
Mm-hmm.
She smiles and nods and says that there is a project coming up, and she and her associates will need all of the assistance they can, and she looks forward to working with you on it.
Okay, great.
Okay. By default, the scene will end on that. Is there anything else you want to throw in there?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so the last we see of that scene is the her generous smile, and we cut to black. We're gonna call that the session.
Awesome.
Yay!
Yay!